We'll move on to the next part. That is covering the content strand summaries now. I have a note here. Unfortunately, the syllabus authors have not provided goals, syllabus objectives for the knowledge and understanding strands, instead listing them as general summaries such as this. We believe, I believe, for reasons explained further below, that it is for good reason that organizational theory anticipates that explicit goals, which are syllabus objectives, be defined for all activities, and that explicit statements of objectives for the knowledge and understanding activities is critical for effective programming of units of work, and that lesson plans for this and for lesson plans for this and all syllabuses. We have therefore converted summaries into statements of goals, syllabus objectives below. So what I've done, I believe that goals are vital. Outcomes have a different purpose from goals. And so I've gone and created goals for these. And so the living world objectives, students explore living things and their needs, discover. Now, I've highlighted discover and put it in that way. Discovery, it comes back to the idea of, of science investigation being adventure. It's adventure, an adventure of discovery. And so I'd rather use the term discover than explore or research. Discover that living things. So what do we want to achieve? We want students to discover, and it also means that means that they're going on a search. If they have to discover something, then we're not actually telling them in the first place. They're going to find it out themselves. Discover that living things have similar characteristics, are interdependent, and interact with each other and their environment. We want them to discover that living things and their features are related to the environments in which they live. That they explore living things, life cycles, structural adaptations and behaviors. Discover that these developmental features and characteristics aid survival in particular environments. Discover that food and fiber are the human-produced or harvested resources used to directly sustain life. So because there are two things there, that's why they're separated. Discover that food and fiber are the human-produced or harvested resources used to directly sustain human life and are produced in managed environments such as farms and plantations. Develop knowledge and understanding about the managed systems that produce food and fiber through creating design solutions, and develop knowledge and understanding of and an appreciation for a variety of knowledge, understanding, and an appreciation for a variety of foods, sound nutrition principles, and food preparation skills when making food decisions. So those are the objectives of covering the living world strand. The material world objectives, students explore the characteristics and observable properties of substances and materials. They explore how materials can be changed and combined. Explore change of state, investigate how chemicals can be combined and separated. Develop knowledge and understanding of the characteristics and properties of a range of materials in the development of projects. Build an awareness of the strengths and limitations of materials and integrate this knowledge into design decisions. Develop an appreciation that the selection of materials and processes should be guided by informed consideration of ethical issues and the sustainability of resources. You do that again, you're going to be on dry food for a week. Physical world objectives. Students explore the physical characteristics of objects and how this affects their environment. They discover that light, sound, and heat, so they're covering the three of those, are identified as forms of energy that may be transferred and transformed. They explore the difference between contact and non-contact forces, develop knowledge and understanding of forces, energy, and the properties of materials, so differentiating between energy and forces, though the two are linked, of course, as well as with the property of materials, and their behavior on the performance of designed engineering solutions. They discover how electrical energy can control movement in products and systems, discover how engineered products, services, and environments can be designed and produced sustainably. The Earth and space objectives, small set there, explore changes on Earth such as day and night and seasons related to the Earth's rotation and its orbit around the Sun. Discover the processes that result in changes to the Earth's surface. Explore the ways in which we use the Earth's resources. Consider the influence of human activity on the Earth's surface and its atmosphere. And finally, the digital technologies objectives explore the automation of repetitive tasks through developing their own software and by using existing software packages. Become critical consumers of information and creative producers of design solutions through knowledge and understanding of digital technologies. The outcomes. So what is an outcome? It turns the general statement of a goal, that is the syllabus objectives, what is to be accomplished, into a specific quantifiable statement of what is going to be achieved. Corporate objectives usually define a time frame for achieving the objective. In a syllabus, the when is by the end of the learning stage. How will it be known that a goal, syllabus objective, has been achieved? Specific skills and knowledge and understanding will be observed in the student when they've achieved the goal. Statement that describe what skills and knowledge and understanding will be observed and measured and quantified through student assessments are the syllabus outcomes. And normally, often when programming occurs, we jump straight to the outcomes, decide and the content, and decide how we're going to teach the content to meet the outcomes, and create our assessments so that they will tell us whether the students have achieved it, to what extent the students have achieved the outcomes. The way that the outcomes are coded in the syllabus, and so you'll see there are little characters and numerals. The stage a student is at, the skill being observed, the subject the skill is being observed in, and the strand. So let's have a look at that. So it's broken down the stage. The code is E for early stage 1 and then 1, 2, and 3. Subjects are either science or technology. The skill is either design and production or working scientifically. And the strand is digital, technology, earth and science, living world, material world, and physical world. So there's an example. STE1WSS. ST is science and technology. The E is early stage 1, outcome number 1. The skill is working scientifically, and it's S for science. Another one, STE is again science technology, early stage 1, outcome 2, and then science and technology again. So that's how we read them. The outcomes are listed in tables. They list the outcomes, and once again I have colored the outcomes so we can see how the concept in each outcome progresses through the stages. So once again, for example, in early stage 1, observe questions and collects data to communicate ideas. That then progresses to observes questions and collects data to communicate and compare and ideas. So I should have ideas flowing through in the two of them, but here we are adding compare. And then stage 3, they don't have to observe anymore. They question, plan, and conduct scientific investigations, collecting data. I guess there's observe in there as well, and that then morphs on. I had to figure out what does the morph actually include. So there's a fair bit of work trying to understand what parts of it are moving through from stage to stage to stage. Just let me go back and point out, so that one's for skills, outcomes from skills, outcomes from knowledge and understanding. There are further ones for knowledge and understanding because we're actually looking at the five strands. At this point, pause this material and referring to the continuum of learning for outcomes, discuss in your group whether this continuum of learning would inform collaborative development between teachers of different stages of units of work and lesson plans. So I'll ask you to consider that and then come back to the video. Now we come to the content, units of work, and so content, that is, and from that we create units of work and lesson plans, statements of action and action plans in organizational theory. And this says, next to the syllabuses include agreed Australian curriculum content and content that clarifies the scope, breadth and depth of learning. The Australian curriculum achievement standards underpin the syllabus outcomes and stage statements for early stage 1 to stage 5. And so that's what I was saying. In fact, you need to go to the Australian curriculum to see, I forget the term they use, but the elaborations of these of this content, and then also to find examples and resources. So how is the Australian curriculum coded? Because you'll see references to these numbers. So there we have AC is Australian curriculum, SS means science, then U is S is science, SU is science understanding, and then the element code is 77. You don't have to know how to read those to be able to find your way around it, because we've given you links to all of these in the resources that you are receiving from us. And you can just do a search for them in Scootle, because the New South Wales syllabus references them inside the content. So at this point, you've not yet used Scootle. Pause this material, sign on to Scootle, and browse through it to familiarize yourself with it. Now, you're a Department of Education teacher, so the way you should go to Scootle is actually through your DOE portal, because each state modifies the interface to Scootle to suit their specific needs. They might leave some things out. They tend not to put things in. So to go to Scootle, if you haven't used Scootle before, go to your portal. You'll see the link to Scootle, and you'll be able to go straight to Scootle. You won't have to sign in, I think, because it'll take your DOE sign in, and just have a look at how Scootle is presented. So there is what you'll see when you go to Scootle, and it'll ask you which of those are you using, where are you coming to Scootle from, which of those authorities. Scootle is actually owned by the federal government and all of the state governments. In fact, legally it's owned by the ministers, not by the governments. So as a minister changes, that minister gets ownership of Scootle, and it's funded by all of them together. Right, let's get into the syllabus content. And as we've seen this diagram before, and the content is under content strands: living world, material world, physical world, earth and space, and digital technologies. A breakdown of the content at each strand is provided. And here is the breakdown. I'm not going to go through this in detail, because we've done that already to some extent, and you'll be doing that when you work through the content in your groups. So I'm just moving through them. In fact, we've already done this, so that's duplicated here. When you look through the content, you'll see that there are inquiry and focus questions. I think if I move forward, we'll see them. Let me just jump there. You'll see there are inquiry questions, and I've gone and sorted them into inquiry questions and focus questions. So let me go back. That describes them. And what are inquiry and focus questions? The syllabus gives very little guidance on what they are. Neither the New South Wales syllabus or the Australian one. So I had to go and do a fair amount of research trying to understand, in education and also in scientific investigation, what is the purpose of these different questions. And this is what was clarified. that inquiry questions guide a search for information and knowledge. In practicing science, the types of inquiry questions posed are a bit more restrictive in that they should be testable. The National Research Council defines scientifically oriented questions as those that lend themselves to empirical investigations, some that you can actually prove by measuring or observing, and lead to gathering and using data to develop explanations for scientific phenomena. Designing a testable question. Whereas focus questions, so just let me go back to that. So inquiry questions, they guide your search for information and knowledge, and they should be like a fun adventure. A focus question is a question that specifies a problem, issue, or question for investigation, analysis, or resolution. It takes the knowledge and understanding that the inquiry question adventure took us on and gives us a path to follow to apply that to pursuing one or more objectives to achieve one or more outcomes. So that's the way they link. The inquiry question is the exciting adventure of discovery, and then the focus question is how are we going to do this? What are we going to use it for? But answering that single focus question is not in itself the end goal. It's important for teachers and students to question each individual concept in a focus question mission, often best helped by a concept map. Do I understand what this concept really means and its relationship with its linked concepts? That implies that good focus questions don't just say, is the sun hot? Yes or no, or why is the sun hot? Generally, they would be more complex than that, so that there's an interaction that is presented in a concept map. A focus question delineates what students are trying to figure out. A good focus question considers, now these are not my thoughts, this is taken from research that I found. It questions what question do you want to be in students' minds as they engage in the learning activities, what will encourage your students to be curious about the concepts, what question will lead to desired understandings, does your question encourage reasoning, could students have a robust discussion about this question, will it allow students to make connections to prior knowledge and or lessons, will it promote inquiry and stimulate thought? Here are some examples of focus questions. Where does our water come from? What effect does water have on seeds? How can we get a light bulb to burn brighter? Again, there you have multiple concepts that have been investigated and they brought together in that question. How did the Grand Canyon form? So those ones are more illustrative of what a focus question is after you've done your adventure of research. Sometimes the inquiry question and the focus question are joined together. This syllabus so why I'm doing it this way is this syllabus actually specifies them separately. So these are, I've gone and listed these in this way. And in fact, what you're seeing on the screen here, you are provided with in Excel. They're not Excel spreadsheets, they are sheets in Google Chrome, and you can all get access to them through your Google Access, departmental access. And these are the focus questions. We're going to have a look at them in more detail. So do these questions fit in? They don't. Is there a problem with the nature of the syllabus? Yes. They're more assessment type questions than inquiry questions. The questions exhibit an implied assumption that there is a correct set of responses that make up a correct answer, so that's another problem with them, with the student's task being to determine through investigation or research what that set of responses is. It's not a discovery, it's not an adventure to find out. It is, how does heat, light, and electrical energy make things happen, for example? That means that there are ways that, to me, that reads there are ways heat, light, and electrical energy makes things happen, and you need to go out and find out what they are and come back with that information. What are Earth resources and how do we use and care for them? Go and find out what the resources are, find out how we use and care for them, and come back with that information. How do living things change as they grow? Go and find out. So all of these are simply obtain information and present and one might even say unkindly regurgitate it. In fact, I point out most of these questions can be answered by Google cut and paste. Very few of them require or elicit analytical or critical thinking. Let's go back to the example they gave us there. Do the similarities and differences between the life cycles of living things affect whether they interact with each other? You're going to have, even artificial intelligence is not, and it's growing, it's improving very quickly, it's not smart enough to answer that. Has the average rainfall over New South Wales and the average rainfall over Western Australia the last few years affected food and fibre production? You're not going to be able to answer that just by cut and paste. That requires analytical thinking. And we'd like, in our inquiry questions, it's not just a search for information, it's an adventure. And an adventure is not reading an encyclopedia and noting down what you're finding, or reading Google search and just taking what you're finding. That's boring. So why is that a problem? Because they're going to guide your creation of your unit work and your lesson plan. And if you use those to guide your inquiry, what you're setting up for your students are cut and paste, find, regurgitate activities. They are bad questions. So, using the below guidelines, we modified some of the questions. A great example of an improvement in an inquiry question to make it more interesting, challenging, and eliciting of analytical and critical thinking. We included an example of linking two inquiry topics together, a great way to frame the questions. So remember, it's testable and it should have at least two variables. The variable can be tested. It has a cause and effect relationship, and prefix parameters are stated. So let's have a look at what I did. So original question, you can find it there. How can we group living things? It's under 2LW. New question. Can changing the way we group living things help us manage their environments? That now joins multiple areas, and so what we're asking is we need you to find out, because if you can't answer that question without finding out how we group living things, and you can't answer it unless you go into managing living things environments, and then you use both of those to go and do your inquiry search. Original question, how can we investigate the observable changes that occur in the sky and on the land? New question. Can finding new ways to investigate observable changes that occur on the land help us improve the way we investigate observable changes that occur in the sky? You see, it's actually quite a simple task to do it, but what you're doing is you're switching it, and you can see there are dependent and independent variables and multiple ideas there. So if we have a look at that, we're separating off changes on the earth and the land and changes in the sky, and we're saying, can one cause, the way we do the one, have an effect on the other? So there's an independent and a dependent variable, and that now, so it's much easier to explain it when you look at examples. Original question, how do sudden geological changes and extreme weather events affect the Earth's surface? Where is that? How do sudden, that's the last one on the list. Better way of phrasing it, might there be interactions between how sudden geological changes and extreme weather events affect the Earth's surface? Or are the effects of each independent on the other? So what I'm saying is, well, we're talking about two things there. Sudden geological changes and extreme weather events. Could there be something when one happens that it causes the other? And so there you've got we're saying, is there a dependent, is there independent? And we're doing the same thing. We're investigating sudden geological changes, and we're investigating weather events, but we're saying, is there some sort of link? That's analytical thinking. And it says, note the deliberate use there of might there be instead of are there in the last one. If you say are there, that is that sounds like an assessment. Are there interactions? And there's a right or wrong answer. We say, I didn't mean there's a right or wrong answer. Well, then why did you say are there? I guess it's just that there's a much more open way of saying these things. Might there be? It means, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I prefer that, I think. So there, that'll give you an idea of how you can improve those and really let them drive your units of work and your programs, your units of work and your lesson plans with interesting, exciting, analytical stuff. And what I'd ask you to do is you don't need to, I'm not saying rewrite all of those now. I think they all need rewriting. But you wouldn't necessarily want to do that now. But just have an experiment in your group and see, can you improve on some of the others? And when you've had a chance to do that, come back. Now, the suggestion was, and again, this is not my suggestion, this is some of the research that I found, that using concept maps to do this, and there are lots of free online materials for creating concept maps, and ones on apps as well, that you find lots of online ones. So they assist in documenting what you're finding and analyzing the product of an inquiry and focus questions. Now, this is interesting. The research shows that concept maps modeled with a circular structure lead to significantly more instances of meaningful or dynamic propositions when compared with concept maps modeled with a tree-like structure. Now, of course, I'm not saying try and explain that to your students. This is between us, we teachers. So what we're doing is we're saying, well, there's probably interactions going on there. It's not just a hierarchy. So let's see if we can work out the interactions. This system thinking, I guess. Is there a system? And most of these, you'll find that there is some sort of system going on. In work presented at the concept mapping conferences, they report on experiment comparing two strategies to encourage the construction of more dynamic relationships, the use of quantifiers on the root concept of them, and the dynamic focus. A more dynamic focus question has a beneficial effect, but adding a root quantifier is even greater. What does that actually mean? Well, dynamic means you're asking it as if there's some ongoing emotion. So if you say, what is quality education? There's a fixed answer, and then you go on to something else. But you say, what are the effects of an increase in the quality of education? That is actually a process that you're talking about. And they're saying, by switching to something that is dynamic, rather than static, you're going to get better results, of course, because it results in analytical thinking rather than just what is quality education, which you can answer by doing research copy-paste. And the other one is the quantifier. So the quantifier, there's nothing in what is, but the quantifier in the second one is an increase. So what are the effects of an increase in the quality of education, in a decrease of the quality, in a doubling of more rain, of less rain, of greater armor on an insect, these sorts of things? That's quantity, and it again elicits analytical thinking. Analytical thinking is really what we have to try and get our students to use, because it's what's going to enable them to prosper when they leave school, because without it, it's going to become more difficult to prosper. So the resources we provide to assist you will enable you to create your programs. So firstly, there's a complete syllabus as a spreadsheet. It's this one over here, which is much easier to read the syllabus. It's color-coded, it has headings, and you can go through that, and it enables you to look more deeply and more at the syllabus than the document that you have. And it also has those direct links for each area into the Scootle page. Then I've just taken off the content and given that to you as a spreadsheet as well. So that's simply content. So when you want to just go through and understand the content, and that again can be sorted, you have to have the school version to be able to sort it, but otherwise you'll be able to scroll through it on the link that you've got. And there you can see it's in the order that it's presented in the syllabus, follows exactly that order. The numbers at the left are my sequence numbers, but they're very important in matching things, so you'll be able to use those numbers are common throughout. You'll find all of those numbers. If you find number 40 in one of these spreadsheets, it'll be exactly the same line as 40 in another one. Then I've given you the inquiry questions as a spreadsheet. All of the inquiry questions in sequence as they go through the syllabus, and the focus questions. And I've joined them together the way the syllabus does, inquiry, focus, so that you can go and see how they fit in together. I was also interested in what verbs are used in the syllabus. The verbs are very important in writing a syllabus or in our programs and units of work. So here I've extracted the verbs related to each of these, each of the content, area of content, and that also in the school version is sortable. I've been asked for this. I don't think that it's relevant, but I've been asked for it. So I've done it, comparison between the 2013 and the 2018 or 19 syllabus. So that's in your set of resources as well. The syllabus objectives, I've gone and analysed those and given those to you as a spreadsheet, because to me they are really the critical part of creating your program. So there they all are. I've gone and analysed them and separated them off, and there you have them with the heading and the subheading. Now we'll go forward. So, and now I've given you the syllabus outcomes as a spreadsheet. So these are the outcomes, sorted again. And here's my suggestion of how you go about creating your units of work. The Australian Curriculum website does provide comprehensive examples of portfolios for work for you in assessing, and unfortunately they don't include these other areas that I've said on this